so far. What could stop you repeating that both tonight and tomorrow?
Mistakes, really, I guess. I think even yesterday, they had a pretty big mistake on my lap. So I think, it's nothing's guaranteed at all. A lot of people can try and change things on their car, so other teams might find a bit more performance. I think Red Bull will probably find some pace. Just because it's gone well so far doesn't mean it's going to continue that way, but I think everything's been smooth so far, which has been nice. And I think, the kind of baseline performance we've come into the weekend with has been very strong. So hopefully we can just slightly build on that.
Well done today, thanks.
Oscar Piastri has just uncovered the real reason behind his shocking speed in Qatar, and the leaked internal data from McLaren proves his sprint performance was not luck but the result of something far bigger happening inside the team. The analysis shows Piastri destroyed the field by almost 5 seconds and dropped George Russell out of DRS in only 2 laps, turning his McLaren into the fastest machine under the lights of Lusail. At the same time, the updated championship table reveals Piastri is now only 22 points behind Lando Norris, with Max Verstappen falling to 25 points off the lead as Red Bull struggled with bouncing and instability. Before we reveal the exact leak that explains why the MCL39 was untouchable, make sure you subscribe right now, because the Qatar sprint has changed the title fight in a way nobody expected. Day 1 of competition in Qatar delivered one of the most dominant sprint performances of the entire season as Oscar Piastri converted his pole position into a flawless victory from lights to flag. The internal race analysis confirms he opened a gap of 2.5 seconds on George Russell within only 2 laps and extended it to almost 5 seconds by the finish. This result is far more than a simple win. It signals that McLaren has perfected a package ideally suited to the extreme lateral load demands of Lusail. The sprint showed a level of stability, balance, and tire management that none of the rival teams could replicate. One of the key findings is that Piastri delivered the strongest tire management run of his entire season. Across previous weekends, tire degradation exposed vulnerabilities in his driving approach, particularly in stints where he struggled to protect the front axle. In Qatar, he achieved the opposite. Clean air allowed him to control temperature buildup and maintain perfect balance through the long sweeping corners. The internal team data confirms that Piastri never once dipped outside the ideal lap time window. The MCL39 responded with total consistency, which created a psychological advantage from the first lap. The car itself played an enormous role. The MCL39 has been engineered this season to excel on circuits where long radius corners generate continuous lateral load. Qatar is one of the purest examples of that concept, and McLaren's aerodynamic philosophy proved superior to every rival. The car showed almost no drag penalty and produced stable rear support even at maximum speed through sectors 2 and 3. Unlike Red Bull, which struggled with bouncing, and Mercedes, which fought drag limitations, the McLaren allowed Piastri to maintain minimum speed through every fast section. No last-minute upgrades were required because the base package was already the strongest at this track. From the cockpit, Piastri executed one of the cleanest race starts of his career. The analysis confirms he delivered perfect clutch engagement followed by a launch that created instant separation from Russell. Once he broke DRS, the race effectively ended because Russell could not sustain tire performance while following closely. Piastri managed the pace with total control, adjusting lap speed in increments of only a few tenths to protect the tires. The team described his driving as calm, precise, and mature, demonstrating how quickly he has adapted to a championship-level mindset. The sprint also transformed the title picture. Before the session, Piastri trailed Norris by 24 points. After the win, he reduced the gap to 22, while Max Verstappen dropped to 25 points behind the championship leader. This shift places Piastri in a realistic position to extend the fight to Abu Dhabi. With Norris stuck behind Russell for the entire sprint and unable to launch an attack, McLaren now enters Sunday with a driver pairing separated by only one strategic mistake. Piastri's victory confirmed that the momentum inside the team has tilted sharply in his favor. Norris, meanwhile, endured a frustrating sprint. Although his pace was strong, the aerodynamic turbulence behind Russell destroyed his front tire performance. Following closely in Qatar punishes the front axle, and Russell's defensive positioning blocked every attempt to create an overtaking opportunity. Norris ended third and admitted that Sunday will demand absolute tire discipline and a flawless strategic execution. His frustration is understandable because he knows the championship can slip away if Piastri wins again under the lights. The final element in the context is Verstappen's position. The Dutchman gained 2 places at the start, moving to 4th after overtaking Tsunoda and Alonso. but mid-race he began reporting bouncing instability and braking issues that made the RB21 impossible to push. As a result, Verstappen could not challenge the McLarens or Russell and finished fourth, losing additional ground in the standings. With only one race after Qatar remaining, his chances now rely on external incidents rather than pure pace. This places even more significance on Piastri's resurgence because Verstappen can no longer influence the title directly. Oscar Piastri's sprint victory may look effortless from the outside, but the internal McLaren analysis shows that the biggest problem for the competition was the sheer stability of the McL39 compared with every other car on the grid. The rivals could not match the consistency of Piastri's balance through the long arcs of Lusail. While most drivers fought shifting balance from mid-corner to exit, Piastri enjoyed a platform that reacted exactly the same lap after lap. This created a performance gap that expanded instantly and could not be reduced through strategy or driving technique. The second major problem for his competitors was the aerodynamic efficiency difference. McLaren arrived in Qatar with a package naturally suited to high-speed corners, and the McL39 produced a level of downforce that remained stable even when tire temperatures fluctuated slightly. Other cars, especially Mercedes and Red Bull, faced drag penalties that forced compromises in minimum speed. Russell had to lift earlier to preserve the rear end, while Verstappen struggled with bouncing that broke airflow under the floor. Piastri's car simply remained planted, allowing him to maintain cornering commitment that no one else could match. A third issue affecting both Norris and Verstappen was the destructive impact of following another car in Qatar. The circuit's aerodynamics punish pursuit because the long corners create constant reliance on clean airflow. Norris sat trapped behind Russell's Mercedes for the entire sprint because the turbulence robbed him of front-end grip and induced tire overheating. Verstappen experienced a similar phenomenon as he attempted to chase the leaders. Once the front tires overheated, the balance collapsed and the car drifted wide on entries. Piastri, running in clean air from the opening lap, avoided this aerodynamic penalty entirely. Another critical issue for the field was tire preservation. Qatar is notorious for punishing the front axle through long-duration load phases. In previous events, Piastri struggled with tire life relative to Norris, but this sprint reversed the trend completely. The internal data shows Piastri built an ultra-consistent thermal profile in both front tires. Rivals were forced into defensive management, especially Russell, who began losing rear stability midway through the race. Norris also admitted after the sprint that his tires overheated early, preventing him from attempting overtakes. This created a cascading effect that left Piastri uncontested from the start. The strategic landscape created problems too. McLaren expected both cars to challenge for the win, but Norris's inability to clear Russell early destroyed that scenario. Every lap stuck behind the Mercedes tightened the championship and forced Norris to adjust his pace. Verstappen meanwhile lacked the baseline speed to pressure either of them. Neither driver had the tools to disrupt Piastri's rhythm, and without that pressure he was free to manage degradation perfectly. The sprint format also limited strategic variation, meaning no undercut or offset strategy could neutralize Piastri's clean air advantage. The psychological dynamic inside the pack became another problem. Once Piastri broke DRS on lap 2, the tone of the sprint changed completely. The chasing drivers instantly realized they were racing for second place rather than for the win. That shift affects decision-making and encourages defensive behavior. Russell began focusing on preserving his tires instead of attacking. Norris shifted into frustration management as he searched for opportunities that never came. Verstappen recognized early that he lacked the stability to challenge and settled into a conservative rhythm. Every driver behind Piastri entered a mindset shaped by limitation, while Piastri operated in complete freedom. The final problem for the field is the championship context. With Verstappen finishing fourth and Norris stuck in third, Piastri's victory tightened the standings dramatically. The rivals not only failed to stop his sprint win but allowed him to gain direct points in a title fight separated by small margins. This created strategic panic for both teams because the Sunday race now carries championship implications for every position inside the top 10. The sprint exposed weaknesses in the McLaren and Red Bull packages that cannot be resolved overnight and handed Piastri the psychological advantage heading into the most crucial session of the weekend. McLaren's engineering team entered the Qatar sprint with enormous pressure because the McL39 needed to convert its theoretical pace advantage into real on-track dominance. The circuit demands an aerodynamic platform capable of sustaining uninterrupted lateral load through long radius corners, and the car delivered exactly that. Engineers reported that Piastri's chassis remained perfectly balanced in all three sectors, validating months of development aimed at eliminating mid-corner instability. This level of predictability gave the team confidence to let Piastri push from the first lap without the risk of unexpected rear snaps or load spikes. One of the key engineering successes was the car's ability to maintain downforce even as tire surface temperatures fluctuated. Lusail places extreme heat into the loaded tires, and cars with sensitive aerodynamic platforms suffer a rapid loss of grip. The internal data shows the MCL39 preserved its aerostructure even when tire temperatures peaked, allowing Piastri to carry identical entry speeds for nearly every lap. Rivals like Mercedes and Red Bull could not match this stability due to drag penalties and bouncing issues, forcing them to manage rather than attack. This engineering resilience formed the backbone of Piastri's victory gap. The team also executed a meticulous plan for thermal preparation, ensuring Piastri's tires reached the ideal operating window exactly at the start. Tire warm-up is especially complicated in Qatar because the surface cools quickly, and overloading the front tires early can ruin an entire sprint. McLaren delivered perfect preparation laps which gave Piastri immediate front-end response into the first corner and allowed him to break away before rivals could stabilize their balance. Once clear of DRS, the engineering team shifted focus to maintaining precise thermal deltas, a discipline that Piastri executed flawlessly from the cockpit. Another point of engineering excellence came from traction optimization. The MCL39 delivered one of its strongest launches of the season thanks to calibrated clutch mapping and ideal torque delivery. The analysis shows Piastri gained crucial meters on Russell before reaching turn 1. This clean launch allowed him to dictate the race and insulated him from the turbulence problems that plagued Norris behind Russell. By controlling the start phase so effectively, McLaren neutralized any threat from behind and placed full strategic control in Piastri's hands. It was a critical engineering achievement that changed the entire shape of the sprint. Engineers also faced the challenge of managing crosswind sensitivity, a known weakness of McLaren on certain circuits. Lusail is vulnerable to small wind direction changes that destabilize cars mid-corner. The MCL39, however, showed exceptional resistance to these fluctuations thanks to adjustments made earlier in the day. While other teams reported mid-corner rotation loss when gusts hit, Piastri's car held its line with almost no correction. This allowed him to maintain throttle application deep into the corner, a behavior that widened his lap time advantage and reinforced McLaren's aerodynamic strength under variable airflow.